YouTube! We're gonna do a summoning mechanic tier list. Why? Because the content machine has dried up. So, let's see how we can categorize and put together the summoning mechanics of Yu-Gi-Oh! So, we're gonna begin with normal summoning. Aleister the Invoker, huh? What do we think about normal summoning? Well, normal summoning is, of course, available to all decks and any deck in the game. You are getting one of them per turn, and therefore it's very important. I think that the normal summon is, unfortunately, the most vulnerable normal summon, although for a lot of decks, it is the most powerful one. It depends on the deck you're playing, but personally, I feel like over the years, normal summoning isn't as good as it used to be. We have so many extenders and special summons in Yu-Gi-Oh! That a lot of the time, you don't even need your normal summon. So I'm gonna put normal summon as A tier. Next up, we have tribute summoning. Tribute summoning used to be an absolute powerhouse of a summon back in the day with the Monarchs and some of the most iconic tribute summons we've ever seen in the game. But generally, that's really all it's done, was just facilitate some Monarchs. Now, I think in the context of their time back in the day, a tribute summon used to be powerful. You drop a Parshath and attack, you were swinging the game. If you summon a Jimjo and negate all of your opponent's trap cards on the field, that was a big deal. But it was always with the sacrifice of losing a monster. It's hard to really look at this objectively because there's always like the nostalgic part of it, but also like the modern side of it. I think tribute summoning is pretty somewhere in the middle, maybe if we take a little bit of a perspective of both. And that, I think, is going to be included with the new Flunderies deck, which might change the shape of the meta and bring some revitalized life into tribute summoning, because I think that's what we're missing. So tribute summoning, I'm going to say, is a solid B tier. And next, we've got flip summoning. Flip summoning in Yu-Gi-Oh, huh? You know, it's very hard to think of good modern flip decks. It's really hard to try find something that's really relevant and big in modern Yu-Gi-Oh that can flip. What are good flip modern decks? Crawler, Deus Ex Crawler, the Majesty's Fiend set monster, right? Shaddolls don't really count as flip monsters personally, right? Let's be real. Those aren't really flip monsters. But, you know, back in the day, you said a Dekoichi, you said a Magician of Faith, you said a Vindictive Magician. Those were power plays. Gravekeeper Spy, those were huge plays back in the day. But I think, like, flip summoning is completely debilitated, and I think it loses so much of its power as it once did, because it's become too slow to set a monster in wait. So I'm gonna put it's not really a summoning mechanic. I'm gonna put flip summoning in the C tier. I don't think Subterra really counts as a flip deck. It has one monster and hand traps and floodgates and trap cards, so I don't really know if flip summoning is what makes it really good, so I'm gonna put it in the C tier. Next up is ritual summoning. Ritual summoning. What do we say about ritual summoning? The single most minus neg mechanic in the entire game of Yu-Gi-Oh! There's nothing that just, in terms of raw card advantage, hurts you more than anything as ritual summoning. In general, we have seen a handful of meta decks over the course of the last few years. Drytron, Necros, but it's really hard to really find that many that as a pure ritual deck would really do much. What we've seen is an innovation of, you know, Konami coming up with a bunch of ways to like make the decks like super powerful by just bypassing the ritual mechanics completely, right? Like detaching for ritual summons and stuff like that. It's hard to really put it anywhere good personally, just because of how few decks there have been. But we have seen some powerful ritual decks in the history of this game, and I'm gonna put it right here in the B tier. I think it's just, you could make a strong case for A, but I'm gonna go with B. The next summoning mechanic is fusion summoning. Fusion summoning is, again, one of the most minus mechanics in all of Yu-Gi-Oh! But Konami, again, are designing decks and have been making different archetypes over years that plus off of it really well. We can cheat out fusion summons by contact fusing, by banishing from the graveyard. Some decks even fuse from deck. Haha, make Verte. Fusion summoning as a mechanic has gone through so many evolutions and iterations in recent years that I think that it's definitely up there, and it's gotten really powerful from where it once first started, because actually, Fusion Summoning, unlike Flip Summoning, has gotten progressively better, whereas Flip Summoning has gotten progressively worse. So I think I'm going to put Fusion Summoning up here with A. We're always going to see a good Fusion deck in the game, and especially with Konami constantly coming up with Contact Fusing as a way to cheat out monsters, I think it deserves to be up here. And our first D-tier summoning mechanic, without a doubt, has to be Gemini Summoning. I think, you know, you could argue technically this is just a normal summon, but that's why it's so shit. Because it's a normal summon that requires a normal summon to put on the board in the first place. Gemini is so bad, I can't even think of a meta deck except Gigaplant Supervise that's ever been even remotely competitive. And even then, I don't even think that used to actually do the normal summon. I think you used to cheat it with the equip spell or something, the Supervise or whatever it used to be. Yeah, never really been that many Gemini summons. Okay, there's a couple people are mentioning right now, but generally been really bad. So Gemini's gonna be D for me, buddy. All right, now we're getting into some powerhouses right here, boys. We have Synchro Summoning. Ooh, baby. Synchro Summoning. Synchro Summoning, I feel like, can be very hit or miss. It has a super specific requirement of a level and a tuner monster, and they all have to add up to a specific amount. It's quite hard to cheat out Synchro Summoning in the same way that Konami managed to help us cheat out Fusion Summoning, and we have seen a lot of good Synchro Summon archetypes in general, but as a mechanic and as a concept, I think Synchro Summoning is actually one of the weakest modern mechanics, not compared to the original 3 or 4. I think that Synchro Summoning is actually quite weak because of that constraint of requiring X monster plus another monster, adding them up. It can be quite minus to go into those. So I think I'm going to put Synchro Summoning in the B tier. I don't think Synchro Summoning's that good. All right, moving on. We've got XC Summoning. Overlaying 2 monsters together to create a more powerful monster. This basically gave you the level requirement of the restriction that was Synchro Summoning, but also removed the tuner requirement. XC Summoning, I feel like, is just an all-round better mechanic that many decks can access so much easier than Synchros can, and basically any of the other archetypes can, because generally archetypes tend to follow the trend of being of the same level and tend to be just easier to access than any of these things. That's the beauty of XC Summoning. It's something that any deck can access and do really well, regardless of the constraints of that specific archetype. So I'm going to put XC Summoning as our first S-tier summoning mechanic, baby. No bias there at all. Our next summoning mechanic is, now you might be noticing down at the bottom here, is that we've divided this into 2. Pre-Master Rule 4 Pendulum and Post-Master Rule 4 Pendulum. I think it's very clear that Pre-Master Rule Pendulum is extremely different to how you would play Pendulum today, requiring only 2 scales that have a corresponding matching level to then spit out onto the field immediately, turn after turn after turn. There's a reason why Yu-Gi-Oh! Saw a lot of players cite Pendulum as the reason they left the game. There is no doubt in my mind that this is an S-tier summoning mechanic, without a doubt. And for its slightly uglier, slightly dumber younger brother, the Pendulum Summon Post-Master Rule 4. Oh baby, how they butchered it. Oh baby, how did they murder my boys. This is a joke and a ghost and a shadow of what it once was. Pendulum Summoning today is just a real, like, disappointment in ways that you can't even begin to understand. They reverted all of the extra deck summoning mechanic changes with the new Master Rules and Master Rule 5 or whatever you want to call it, but they forgot Pen Summoning, and that's probably because of how good pre-Master Rule Pen Summoning was. It's hard to say where this deck really is these days. There's never going to be an archetype as good as what was using the mechanic to its full extent. Pre-Master Rule 4, I'm not going to lie, I think it's a C tier. We saw one deck do well with the pendulum mechanic, and that was it. And you would really have to kind of argue and ask yourself, was it really because of the pendulum summoning being broken, or was it specifically the Astrograph Electromite interaction, which wasn't a pendulum summon? I think it's very clear if you come to terms with that and realize that post-Master Rule Pendulum is an abysmal summoning mechanic and just absolutely terrible compared to where it once was. And finally, we have Link Summoning. The reasons I outlined for XC Summoning being so powerful should probably resonate with Link Summoning. XC Summoning was so strong because it didn't have that specific requirement of, you know, a tuner or a specific material. They were generally generic monsters that were combined with 2 different levels. Now, how about a mechanic that doesn't have generally level requirements, archetype requirements sometimes, or any of those tuner or secondary cards like a polymerization or a fusion card? Link Summoning just requires bodies. If your deck can put bodies on the field, then no Russian. Link Summoning is an S+ mechanic. If there was a category above here, that's where Link Summoning would be. That's the power creep of where they put this. Well, ladies and gentlemen, this is my summoning mechanic tier list. Thank you everyone for watching. Twitch chat, please express in your angelic, typical way that you normally do as to what you think of my tier list. Baby rage or pog you? Oh, just question marks. Okay. Question marks. All right, cool. All right, thanks for watching. Peace.